Tonight on Reporting Scotland, the moment a recovery driver is caught on camera checking his phone before a crash that killed a mother of four. Her family hope drivers will think twice before using their mobiles in the car.
To deter other drivers from doing a similar thing, because it caused a lot of suffering.
Also coming up in the programme, madness, one manager's verdict on the decision to hold both League Cup semi-finals at Hampden on the same day. Kezia Dugdale questions how people can trust her party as an internal fight rages about the former Labour leader's legal bills. The new Struntian school that can be turned into houses if the village's needs change.
Hey, that's a nice cheery one, isn't it?
And the launch of BBC Music Memories, designed to help people living with dementia. Good evening. A truck driver who caused a fatal crash on the A75 last year while looking at his mobile phone has been sentenced to 5 years in jail. David Shields ploughed into the back of a line of traffic on the Gretna to Stranraer road, hitting Yvonne Blackman's car. Mrs. Blackman from Lockerbie died 2 weeks later in hospital. The 34-year-old driver had pled guilty to causing her death by dangerous driving. Aileen Clark reports.
On the 8th of February last year, David Shields was driving his recovery truck along the A75 Gretna to Stranraer road, but his dashcam footage clearly shows his attention was not on the road ahead, but on his mobile phone. Crash investigators found for 18 seconds his attention was actually on his mobile phone. Then this happened. He'd ploughed into a line of traffic, hitting the Toyota Yaris driven by Yvonne Blackman. Mrs. Blackman sustained serious spinal injuries and died 2 weeks later. On sentencing, the judge, Lady Stacey, said to Shields, "You are a professional lorry driver. You should have seen the queue of traffic and stopped, but you didn't because your attention was focused on the mobile phone." She said, "You did not intend the catastrophic result, but you should have known the terrible risk you were taking." She said, "You know nothing can turn the clock back or take away the hurt you have inflicted on Mrs. Blackman's family." She said, "Nothing can take away the grief the family feels." And she sentenced him to 5 years in prison and banned him from driving for 7.5 years. At court, Yvonne's husband of almost 38 years and a former lorry driver himself gave his reaction.
Well, I think it was a reasonable deterrent to deter other drivers from doing a similar thing, because it caused a lot of suffering.
The police fully support the family's hope that this case will serve as a warning to all drivers.
David Shields was entirely focused for quite a period of time on that mobile phone, paying no attention to the road ahead of him. If you want to change music settings, change satellite navigation settings, whether or not the phone's in a cradle or not, you do so when the car is parked and safely at the side of the road, not while the car is in motion.
Mr. Blackman says Yvonne, mother, grandmother and great-grandmother, was at the heart of their family, a woman of faith and fun, from younger days right into her 60s.
Very fun going, and she likes to get things done. Love going on holidays, dancing, and she had a lot of life to live.
When David Shields pled guilty to causing death by dangerous driving, he apologised to the family and knows he will have to live with causing Mrs. Blackman's death for the rest of his life. Aileen Clark, Reporting Scotland at the High Court in Glasgow.
The manager of one of the 4 teams due to play in 2 Hampden semis for the League Cup final on the same day has described the decision as madness. Craig Levine's comments come as the tournament organisers express their sympathy for fans struggling with next month's kick-off times, which they insist are beyond their control. The Scottish Police Federation, meanwhile, are calling for a rethink. Stephen Godden has more.
Good one this time, it must be.
Rangers versus St Mirren in 1983. Played in Glasgow on the same day Celtic faced Aberdeen in the same city. It hasn't happened since, and now Scottish football is about to enter completely new territory. At the end of next month, one stadium will play host to 2 cup semi-finals in the space of a few hours. At lunchtime, Aberdeen will play Rangers, and in the evening, Celtic will play Hearts. Now, with both Glasgow clubs playing in Europe 4 days earlier, the Cup organisers, the SPFL, say that that is the best and the most practical solution. Some people agree, but it's clear that some people don't.
How they've come to this decision just is beyond belief. It's just madness, honestly. There's so many things that could go wrong.
Hearts say their biggest concern is for their supporters who are facing a late-night journey back to Edinburgh. Aberdeen have described the midday kick-off for their match as appalling. The club are in talks with ScotRail about the fact the first train that day is due to arrive in Glasgow 15 minutes after kick-off.
For the fans travelling down, it's quite a burden, really.
Very disappointing that the fans again are being let down, and Aberdeen fans have been asked to travel at such an early time in the day for a semi-final.
We want to be treated equally. We want to have a say in how these things transpire, and unfortunately it just feels, from a fan's point of view, there's a bit of contempt that we're down at the bottom of the list, and it shouldn't be that way.
For the police, it means potentially 100,000 supporters in and around the stadium on the same day.
We were consulted by the SPFL, and what we said is that as long as there's a significant period between the 2 kick-offs, then this is something that we are able to police. And if you look at the timings, there's nearly 8 hours between the 2 games.
But the body representing rank-and-file police officers take a different view.
This is a crazy decision. This is frankly an act of pretty reckless scheduling. We need to have a look at this again. This is not suitable for the whole of Scotland. It may work for football, but it doesn't seem to work for anybody else.
In Mount Florida, big football matches have been part of life for more than a century. But for the residents, this is something new.
Well, for local businesses it'll be good.
I do think it's crazy to put all the fans together.
Just as long as everything's carried out in a safe manner, that's the most important thing.
The SPFL are adamant what's being billed as Super Sunday is the only solution. For many, it's a slogan being uttered through gritted teeth. Stephen Gordon reporting Scotland, Hampden.
The former Scottish Labour leader has launched an outspoken attack on her party, questioning if it can be trusted. Kezia Dugdale was speaking after Labour withdrew future financial support as she defends herself in a defamation action following the publication of a Daily Record column. The paper has now stepped in to pay the fees. Our political correspondent Andrew Kerr joins me now from Holyrood. Real anger here, one suspects, Andrew.
Yes, that's right, Sally. This is a direct, outspoken attack from the immediate former leader of Scottish Labour against the party. Now, as you say, Sally, the background to this is that the Labour Party have withdrawing funding for the future legal fight that Kezia Dugdale is having with the Wings Over Scotland blogger Stuart Campbell. She'd called one of his tweets homophobic in her Daily Record column. Well, speaking to me this morning, she said she was crushed by the decision to withdraw funding. Now, she said she wasn't leaving Labour, she was Labour through and through, but she did make that point about trust.
The Labour Party made a promise, and it's not a good look for any political party to fail to keep its promise, and this is what it's doing to one of its own. So how can people trust that party in any other aspect of life if this is what's happening? I think there's a real presentational problem from the party in that regard. And also, this is a party that is fundamentally about fairness, equality and justice. And they've put me in the most horrendous position. I really hope that they'll still change their minds.
Well, Labour are not changing their minds, of course. They wouldn't comment today on that issue about trust, but the current leader, Richard Leonard, has, of course, said that the Labour Party would be sticking with that decision, and the party as a whole said they want to use members' fees responsibly. Now, today the Daily Record stepped in and said they would be paying Kezia Dugdale's fees, but if she loses, she could face still paying personally, from her own money, Stuart Campbell £25,000 and possibly his expenses too. So, Sally, in the week that Jeremy Corbyn was calling for a general election, we have the immediate former leader of Scottish Labour questioning the party's trust. This is a bitter internal dispute in Scottish Labour.
Andrew Kerr, thank you very much. RBS has scrapped plans to close 2 branches in Barra and Biggar after an independent review. The bank, which is mostly owned by taxpayers, sparked anger in January by announcing it would close 62 branches across Scotland. The review found that what it described as exceptional circumstances meant the Castle Bay branch in Barra and one in Biggar should remain open. But 8 other branches, also under review, will now close.
Closing a branch is a very difficult decision. It's even more difficult, I think, in some of the smaller communities, which is why we took the opportunity to do the independent review. What the review underlined, though, is that banking is changing, customer behaviour is changing very quickly, and what we are seeing is more and more customers using newer channels, online, mobile, but also mobile banking and community bankers in place of branches.
Police are warning the public not to approach a man from Easter Ross who's failed to attend court. 32-year-old Derek Mackay lives in Invergordon, but it's believed he may also travel throughout the Highlands. Officers say considerable efforts are being made to locate him. He's described as 5 foot 8 inches tall, medium build with short brown hair. The family of a murdered Aberdeen taxi driver have launched a fresh appeal for information 35 years after his death. George Murdoch was killed by a passenger who used a cheese wire during the violent assault in 1983. No one has ever been arrested or charged. The family is offering a £10,000 reward for information that leads to an arrest. Rebecca Curran reports.
The family are just desperate to find Dodd's killer.
35 years on, and George Murdoch's family is still searching for answers. The taxi driver, seen here with his wife, was murdered in Aberdeen in 1983. As the anniversary approaches, his family is issuing a direct appeal for help in finding his killer.
Somebody knows what he did, and my concern, my appeal to them would be, look, you must be racked with guilt. Your conscience must be racked with guilt. Please, please don't take that to your grave.
On that night in 1983, George picked up what would be his last ever fare on Queen's Road in Aberdeen. He told the control room he was heading to Cooter, 7 miles away, but he never made it. It was here on the outskirts of the city that George was brutally attacked. His passenger used a cheese wire during the violent assault. 2 passing cyclists called the police, but by the time they got here, the killer was gone. In the days that followed, officers searched the area. Despite their efforts, no one has ever been arrested or charged.
10,000 odd houses were visited within Aberdeen during the house-to-house inquiries, and some 8,000 statements were noted from people. That is off the scale as far as I'm concerned with 25 years police service. I've never known anything like it. This is a replica of the cheese wire used by the killer. The real one is being tested using new techniques in the hope it will lead to a breakthrough. Meanwhile, George's family remain confident they'll get justice for a man they say was gentle and kind. Rebecca Curran, Reporting Scotland, Aberdeen.
You're watching BBC Reporting Scotland. It's 18 minutes to 7. A reminder of tonight's top story. A truck driver who caused a fatal crash on the A75 last year while looking at his mobile phone has been sentenced to 5 years in jail. And still to come, we meet the Scottish athletes stepping onto the world stage at the Youth Olympics in Argentina. A West Highland village is set to make history by opening the country's first community-built school. Pupils will be moving into Strontian's new primary school on the Ardnamurchan Peninsula in the next few weeks. It's hoped the concept could be replicated elsewhere, as Ian McInnes reports.
As you can see, the school is a bit dated and it's a bit old and sad, and actually there's not that much space for us at the moment. So really we need a school that's a bit more up to date with technology, suited for the children for the 21st century, and somewhere where there's a bit more space for them as well.
Highland Council agreed a new solution was required, but the way forward wasn't so clear.
They did a statutory consultation on 3 possible options. Unfortunately, their preferred option was not supported by the parents. So we had a wee bit of a stalemate, you know.
Then came a radical plan.
We finance, design and build the school, and we lease it to the council for use as long as they need it as a school.
and that might be only 10 years. Many suggested moving pupils to the village's new secondary school initially, but that was impossible due to the PFI contract under which it was built. That could, though, still happen. The challenges facing this community were twofold. Not only did they have to build a school that was fit for purpose for their community, they also had to think about the longevity of the project, and they did that by designing a build which could be turned into affordable housing.
If the school gets converted into 4 housing units, these interconnected rooms would basically get removed, and each of these 2 units would become individual affordable houses.
In the meantime, there's lots of learning to happen in this new building. And what are the kids most looking forward to?
It's a lot more space in the new school. The classrooms are a lot bigger than the ones we already have.
Bigger playgrounds and everything.
But could this model be replicated elsewhere?
Absolutely. I don't think this is just a Strontian thing, although they're a very talented bunch down there and have a great community association and trust. I think many other communities in the Highlands and across the whole of Scotland could be looking at this and saying, yeah, we can do this too.
On top of their already successful hydro scheme and now their school, this community is looking at taking on other assets. And who would bet against their success? Ian McInnes, reporting Scotland in Strontian.
A First World War soldier has been honoured in his hometown of Wigtown, exactly 100 years after an act of bravery earned him the Victoria Cross. Acting Sergeant Louis McGuffey rescued British captives and single-handedly captured up to 40 enemy soldiers in Belgium. Today he was honoured with a commemorative stone. Graham Stewart reports.
1918, and Allied forces along the Western Front helped defeat the German army. 100 years on, and one of their bravest is honoured. Despite being twice wounded in the war, Sergeant Louis McGuffey entered enemy dugouts, rescued British captives, and single-handedly took up to 40 enemy soldiers prisoner. The 25-year-old was killed by a shell just a few days later, unaware that he was to receive the highest award for gallantry. Today, a commemorative paving stone and archway were unveiled in his hometown, watched on by his family.
It's very sad, it's moving. You know, I mean, I was stood there and, you know, I wasn't far off crying. So, when you stand and you think about things, and then there's the pipes playing and there's all sorts of things, it's very moving, yeah, very moving. And I think they've done him proud, definitely done him proud.
Only 74 Scots were awarded the Victoria Cross, 5 of them in Dumfries and Galloway, and that remains a source of local pride.
Louis McGuffey, coming from Wigtown, back 100 years ago he got it posthumously, and the local people in Wigtown actually collected together for his mother to go down to London and pick up the VC from the King. What we've seen here today is the community coming together again and commemorating Louis McGuffey as one of Wigtown's greatest heroes.
Pack up your troubles in your old kit bag and smile, smile, smile.
Like so many others, Louis McGuffey didn't return from the battlefields, but his actions, above and beyond the call of duty, are not likely to be forgotten. Graham Stewart, reporting Scotland, Wigtown.
The third Youth Olympic Games got underway the next week in Argentina, and for 5 young Scottish athletes it's a chance to experience competing on the world stage. As Jane Lewis reports, they're following in the footsteps of one Scot who, after competing at the Youth Games, went on to achieve success at the Olympic Games.
From windsurfing to badminton, 5 Scots, 1 achievement. They'll all be competing here. The Youth Olympic Games take place in Argentina next month and will see around 4,000 athletes aged between 14 and 18 competing on the world stage. The Scots involved will compete across 4 sports, and for this 18-year-old, it's a reward after years of dedication.
Started at 6 years old, just playing with my mum and dad, and then just managed to get into the national team. And just from there, I've been competing abroad and training I'm full-time training now.
Chris Grimley is one of 5 Scottish athletes in the 42-strong British team, and they're following in the footsteps of one Scot who used his experience of competing at the Youth Olympics to great effect.
Duncan Scott is going to hold on for a silver medal here.
2 years on from competing at the Youth Games in 2014, Duncan Scott came home from the Rio Olympics with 2 silver medals. It's a journey others are keen to take, although before that, triathlete Callum Young has his school studies to contend with.
It's challenging, and I think balancing it's like finding a happy medium of getting both in. But my school have been really helpful with being able to move my timetable around to fit in training and important sessions.
And during those training sessions, he's been getting some tips from someone who recently made a name for himself.
Brilliant bronze for Mark Austin from Scotland.
Sort of takes me back to being like 17 and starting to get picked for those teams, and like how exciting it all is to be part of a British team. You know, it really makes such a difference to athletes' sort of confidence levels, so it's good to see him getting that benefit from that.
Isla Watson from Aviemore is also eyeing the benefits as she hits the waves, with windsurfing one of 32 sports taking place over 12 days of competition. Jane Lewis, reporting Scotland. It's BBC Music Day, a celebration of how music can change lives. And it began in Glasgow's Central Station with Amy MacDonald and the Soundsational Community Choir entertaining commuters this morning. It's also seen the launch of BBC Music Memories, a digital platform designed to help people living with dementia. In some Scottish care homes, the creation of personalised playlists consisting of music that's been meaningful to people in their lives has led to dramatic reductions in the drugs having to be used when residents are distressed. Our environment correspondent, Colin Patterson, and even our entertainment correspondent, Colin Patterson, has been finding out more.
Lorna Whittaker lives with dementia.
Lovely work of art.
But one thing that always puts a smile on her face is music.
That was an old one.
That is an old one. For the last 8 years at the Lilyburn Care Home just north of Glasgow, they've been creating music playlists for each resident with dementia, made up of their favourite songs. Lorna, you seem to enjoy that singing there.
Well, I do.
What kind of memories is it bringing back?
All these nice ones.
And the results have been startling.
Medicine can be a quick fix for people, perhaps with dementia, but for Lorna in particular, we try music before medicine.
Music has helped bring about a 60% drop in the use of sedating drugs in the care home, and playlists are being prescribed by GPs. This is actually really being treated as seriously as medication.
Yeah, because we recognise this as a big issue for people with dementia, and if we can control their distress and their agitation, it makes a big difference to the quality of life.
To help people create playlists for loved ones with dementia, the new digital platform BBC Music Memories has been launched to tie in with BBC Music Day.
Bring you back. Nearly great now.
I know.
And at a monthly dementia cafe in Hamilton, school pupils were showing couples, one of whom has dementia, how easy the platform was to use.
I can say to him, wear your slippers and he'll lift a cup and things like that. And he'll not remember these kind of things, but he remembers the words of songs. No problem. No problem at all. It's fantastic.
I would recommend anybody who's going to visit somebody in a care home, a hospital, or just going to see their gran, get it out, have a wee play, have a wee listen, and particularly look out for the TV theme tunes.
Oh, this is a bit dated. And this is only the beginning. A commission of health and music experts is calling for every person in the UK with dementia to have their own playlist by the end of 2020.
Yeah, that's a nice cheery one, isn't it?
Well done. Colin Patterson, reporting Scotland, Glasgow.
Let's hope we're in for some nice cheery weather, Cosser.
Thank you, Sally. Autumnal weather on its way, that's for sure.
Good evening to you all. Well, most of us did enjoy some spells of sunshine today. This was a scene sent in from one of our weather watchers in the Borders. Some bright blue skies, some fair weather cloud around, as we've had a ridge of high pressure across us. But it's a brief ridge of high pressure, and as we look ahead to tonight, it will slip further southwards, and we're introducing these weather fronts across the far north. And you can see how tight the isobars are. It's going to become increasingly windy overnight tonight, and there will be some outbreaks of rain, and it will feel much cooler too. Here's the scene then for the rest of this evening. A lot of dry weather for central, southern and eastern parts of the country. Clear skies allowing for an early touch of frost for some rural areas, but more in the way of cloud building across the northwest during the course of the night. And there will be some showers around, mainly for northern areas and for the Northern Isles too. Fairly windy conditions here. We're looking at gusts of maybe 40 to 50 miles per hour. That's gale force for the Northern Isles, for the Western Isles too. And temperatures, well, rising as the wind increase. We're looking at 5 to 7 Celsius by morning, but an early frost, as I mentioned, this evening. For tomorrow then, there will be a lot of cloud around for the northwest, some early sunshine for the south and east, but cloud will tend to build here by the afternoon. And we'll start to see further showers, these mainly across the far north, and some patchy outbreaks of rain too for the northwest. So if you're planning to head out around 4 o'clock in the afternoon, it will still be quite windy across Shetland, gusts reaching gale force once again. And you can see the line of showers across the far north. 1 or 2 of them could be quite heavy. The best sunshine will be across the east and across the south of the country, but feeling cool, temperatures only reaching 12, 13 Celsius. Across the west coast, then more in the way of cloud, outbreaks of rain. Some of it maybe heavy at times, but a lot of light rain around for lower levels, and those showers across the northwest, and it remains windy here too. So if you're planning to head to the hills and the mountains for some walking, it will be blustery out there, quite gusty, especially for the northwest highlands. These are sustained wind speeds, but we could have gusts of 45 to maybe 50 miles per hour for the northwest highlands, also for the Kulin and Skye ranges too. And there will be some outbreaks of rain here, but mainly light in nature. For the Cairngorms, for the Perthshire Hills, dry to start, but then we'll see some rain pushing in from the west later in the day. And the further south you are, the drier it will be. It will be cool though, and it will be breezy. Now looking ahead to Sunday, while outbreaks of showery rain continue across the northwest with more in the way of cloud here, there will be some sunshine mainly for the south and east. It's still breezy and it will be feeling cool. That's your forecast for now.
Thanks very much, Kosa. Now a reminder of tonight's main news. A truck driver who caused a fatal crash on the A75 last year while looking at his mobile phone has been sentenced to 5 years in jail. David Shields ploughed into the back of a line of traffic, hitting Yvonne Blackman's car. She died 2 weeks later. That's it for now. I'll be back with the late bulletin just after the 10 o'clock news. See you then. Bye-bye.